In the early 1980s, artificial intelligence research had a mathematical brick wall. The simple neural networks of the time, known as perceptrons, were severely limited in the types of problems they could solve, leading to a period of deep stagnation known as the AI winter. Then, in October 1986, the journal Nature published a short paper by David Rumelhart, Geoffrey Hinton, and Ronald Williams. It provided a mathematical procedure that restarted the entire field. The architectural flaw with early networks was their internal structure. While they possessed a clear input layer and output layer, researchers had no mathematical way to adjust the connections of the hidden units, the intermediate neurons sitting directly between the input and output. Without an intermediate layer, a network's output is limited to a linear combination of its inputs. It can only solve problems that are linearly separable. Hidden layers allow the system to decompose information into internal components, providing the mathematical flexibility needed to model nonlinear data. The inability to train the hidden units kept machine learning in its infancy. For neural networks to become useful, a calculus-based method was needed to determine the correct states for these internal components. To prove they had found that solution, the authors designed a specific test, teaching a network to memorize information from two isomorphic family trees. Figure 2 shows the data structure of the English and Italian families. The network receives a specific person and relationship as input. Below, it explains that given inputs like Colin and has aunt, it must activate the correct output node. Figure 3 reveals the experiment's result. Specific patterns of unit activity represent semantic concepts. Notice the white squares in the second layer. These indicate neuron activity levels, showing the network clustered relationships into distinct mathematical patterns. A matrix of completely random starting weights self-organized to understand abstract semantic concepts. The mechanism driving this geometric organization is the engine of backpropagation. Data cascades upward from the input layer, through hidden units, toward an output. Each node receives inputs multiplied by connection weights, summing them sequentially. That linear sum passes through a nonlinear S-shaped sigmoid curve, producing the node's final output state. Equation 3 defines how the network's failure is measured. The total error is the squared difference between the actual output state and the desired target state. Measuring the error at the very end of the network is straightforward, but the desired states of the hidden units are undefined. Without knowing what those middle neurons should be doing, there is no obvious way to assign blame to their internal weights. They solved this credit assignment problem applying the calculus chain rule, tracing the error signal backward from the output layer. The error derivative breaks down into parts, calculating how input changes affect total error, then multiplying that value by how the weight changes total input. Equation 7 shifts focus deeper, computing error for a hidden unit in the penultimate layer. The summation symbol dictates that a hidden unit's error derivative is the exact sum of the error derivatives from all units it feeds into above. Applying these equations top to bottom, the network calculates precisely how much every single deeply hidden weight contributed to the final mistake. Once those partial derivatives are known, the network must physically adjust its connections to minimize the error. This optimization process is called gradient descent. The network updates each weight proportionally to the negative accumulated error derivative. Picture a point rolling mathematically downhill against the gradient. By adding a momentum term, the point rolls smoothly past shallow, poor local minima and settles into the true global minima. This continuous iterative cycle, guessing forward, measuring error, and sliding down the mathematical gradient backward, is the operational core of machine learning. Returning to the family tree problem, after 1,500 sweeps of this backpropagation procedure, the network's random weights had fully organized. Figure 4 displays the receptive fields, the actual learned weights of the hidden units. This grid of white excitatory and black inhibitory rectangles shows exactly what concepts the network learned. Isolating Unit 1 in the top row reveals a stark contrast between the left and right blocks. This specific unit learned to act as a binary switch, distinguishing exclusively between the English and Italian families. Moving down to Unit 2, the distinct vertical groupings show its independent function. Its weight distribution encodes the specific generational branch of the family tree a person belongs to. The network was never programmed with rules regarding nationality or generation. It autonomously invented these abstract concepts strictly as a geometric consequence of minimizing its mathematical error. Figure 5 demonstrates that this architecture is highly scalable. The backpropagation procedure can be mathematically unrolled to train recurrent networks over time, rather than remaining limited to simple layered nets. The authors explicitly conceded a limitation in their paper. Backpropagation is not a biologically plausible model of how human brains actually learn, but its computational utility eclipsed its biological implausibility. It solved the credit assignment problem that had stalled artificial intelligence research for decades. Rumelhart, Hinton, and Williams proved that gradient descent could reliably construct powerful internal representations, providing the operational logic used by almost all contemporary neural architectures.